Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to 5 Minutes of Torah with the Beth Israel Rabbi. This coming Shabbat, we read Parshat Vayikra. This is the first Torah portion in the book of Leviticus, the third book of the Torah. This Parsha and much of the book of Leviticus deals with the laws of the Kohanim, the priests, and the sacrifices that they made in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, and in the temples. The Kohanim are called upon by Moses in this Parsha to not only make offerings, but to bring wood for the burnt offering. Rashi, an 11th century rabbi and biblical commentator, explains that the fact that the Kohanim are meant to bring the wood demonstrates the fact that they help provide the fire in order to consume the burnt offering, and God does so as well. And thus, the Kohanim, the Israelites, and God are in communication with one another through the offerings that they make, creating a spiritual existence. When we were entering into the end of the Second Temple period as a Jewish people, for the very first time, words began to creep in to our offerings in the temple and our way of communicating with God. Simultaneously, synagogues began to pop up around the Jewish world as a way of connecting with the divine. And so when the Second Temple was destroyed, we already had an established way of communicating with God without making sacrifices of animals or agricultural products. And we were able to sustain our relationship with the divine. And just like when the Kohanim were to bring the wood and to bring the fire so that it could be provided in terms of a relationship that went both ways, our words became our way of communicating with God and creating that relationship that went back and forth. We lent this idea to other religious groups, including Christians who pray to God in their churches, and Muslims who pray to God in their mosques, creating spiritual existence, creating a dynamic relationship between themselves and God. This relationship, this communication is truly what makes a sacred space a sacred space. And because a sacred space is where we feel that connection with God, where we're able to connect and feel as though God is with us, it also becomes what is known as a sanctuary, a place where we feel safe. Months ago, for us as a Jewish people, that feeling of a synagogue being a sanctuary was somewhat destroyed in Pittsburgh with the anti-Semitic attack that left so many dead. And here in Canada, that feeling of sanctuary was also somewhat destroyed a couple years ago with the attack on the mosque in Quebec City. And unfortunately, once again, yesterday, we saw that scenario play itself out in Christchurch. I've been to Christchurch. I was there with my family a couple of years ago. Christchurch is a city which is so safe, which is so peaceful. And for something like this to happen specifically in Christchurch in New Zealand is especially hurtful and destructive. Our experience after the attack on the synagogue in Pittsburgh was that so many people reached out to us, especially the Muslim community. And we all said together that the way to defeat hatred is through love. And that is, once again, the way that I believe we must conduct ourselves in response to this attack in New Zealand. Already, for us here at Beth Israel, we have relationships that have developed over the last couple of years and even over the last couple months with both the Christian and the Muslim community. And so not only must we show our condolences and our absolute horror of what took place yesterday with the Muslim community, but we must also demonstrate our love, not only with the Muslim community, but others as well. And thus, I want to make sure that you come and feel especially important, that you feel welcome to two programs that are coming up in the next few weeks. The first is on April 28th, that Beth Israel, Beth Tikva, and the Al-Zahara Mosque are going to be hosting at Beth Tikva Synagogue in Richmond a conversation about the spirituality of fasting and preparation for Ramadan that will begin just a few days later. And on May 8th, we'll be joining together at St. Patrick's Church in their auditorium with the Catholic Archdiocese of the Lower Mainland in order to talk about the connections between the holidays of Passover and Easter, and specifically the history of Easter and anti-Semitism. These are important dialogues. These are important opportunities to meet people of other faiths, and especially at a time like this, to respond to hatred with love, to respond to hatred with community. Shabbat Shalom.